Are you ready for deeper meaning and bigger dreams in your life? Do you believe it can happen? Amy and LoriAnn are here to clear the confusion and help you live life full out, guided by your inner wisdom to create, amplify, and align you with your highest self. Are you ready to attract a divinely blessed life? This is Living in the Faith Frequency.
Hello, friends. It's LoriAnn and Amy with our Living in the Faith Frequency. We're back again and so excited to share with you this week. And I really do say that we have been talking for over an hour and a half before this podcast to really dive in and see what it is that is important this week to share. And we have been crying and laughing and just really sharing together the impact of life and the things that we go through. And I wrote some notes, so if you see me reading some of the notes, it's just, I really want to touch on these 5 different things that we talked about today. And Amy and I have been sharing kind of some really deep personal things that we've been going through. So I wanted Amy to talk about what it's like to want to be a walking example of how you walk and talk and you show up for yourself. You know, you talked about when you walked into a room this week and what happened when you decided to just get out of the house.
Yes, I am wanting to be around people and networking and do what I'm called to do. And so I'm like, I got to get out of my house. So I saw this networking event, and years ago I was a part of it. And so I went in for coffee, and there was probably like 20 some women there. And I walk in and I didn't recognize any faces that I knew. And this one woman turns around and says, "Oh, are you Amy?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she says, "I'm friends with you on Facebook. And we met, it was probably like close to 5 years ago by phone. I was looking for some curtains for my sunroom or whatever." But I remembered our conversation from years ago, and she started following me on Facebook. And so she was aware of my story and my husband and his transition. And she just was so tender about it and welcoming. And she said, I've really enjoyed watching you go through this transition, and I've seen you travel, and you posted something on Valentine's Day, and are you dating somebody? And she said, "I'm just so happy for you." And I felt, she said, "There's so many women, there's 100 and some women in this organization." And she said, "We're all going through transitions." And so I realized in that moment that we're all transitioning, and we all have emotions, and we're all trying to process and show up and be our best version of ourselves. And so it felt really good to, number one, just be seen. And she talked about the grace that I've walked through things with. And at the same time, I felt all kinds of emotions and still am. But I really have wanted to walk my talk and be honest and real about the journey, because the grief that you go through when you lose a life partner, especially so many years and did everything with, it's a journey to keep showing up for yourself. And for me, and LoriAnn was really great to remind me how much I have showed up, because when things start getting hard and I'm doing the harder things, that's when it's easier to second guess yourself and to, doubt, am I showing up enough? Am I doing enough to keep not just surviving, but, I think life is to be enjoyed. That doesn't mean you enjoy the hard stuff, but there is joy in living life if we have the right perspective and the right support. And so, anyway.
I love what she said to you when she said, "I have watched you move through this with such grace." And that's when I had to say to you, Amy, that you truly have stepped up and moved through this with so much grace. Even when you're having conversations with other people, you're talking to them and sharing so much with them. And then it's easy to reflect that back to you because you've lived it.
Yeah. And I think we're all going through things, and I think it's really important that we have people that we can share things with and be seen, and to to process all the emotions that do come up, with somebody that can hold that container for you, and help you remember who you are and how you're going through all of that. And I have other friends that have lost loved ones, in the recent year, and the conversations that I have with them, I think it's important that they be seen, and they feel their emotions. And one of my friends said, "Well, I learned, you told me I've got to feel everything. I feel to heal. So I've been sitting with my emotions. I've been, not running from them, but saying this doesn't feel good, but I will get through it." And I think that's an important, when you can sit with somebody with their feelings, and not feel like you need to run away, but to just, sometimes they just have to move through the body, and then be released. And then I tend to feel like I never know when the tears are going to hit, or emotions going to pop up, or a thought, creates a whole thing for me. And I just, to be able to feel it and not run from it, I think is really healing and powerful, and not to judge yourself for the emotions that you do have, especially going through some type of grief.
I think that sometimes we try and numb ourselves through it, and we're still going to have to go through it. Like, we still have to process it. Like, our body still wants to process it. Our mind still wants to process it. And even though, we're not experts in any of this, we're doing it. We've done it. We've gone through it. We've had help through it. And so I think what some of the things that you've done have been so cool that not even a therapist has told, that I've heard, that they have told people to do. And the one thing that I loved that you said is you record things, like, and you listen to those recordings, like you go back and you listen to those recordings. So, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, there are two things I want to say about that. The first one is, when John was diagnosed, I don't remember who it was, maybe multiple people said, record his stories, his messages. And so I did do a lot of that. And I have recently, I think I needed a little bit of space, but recently I've been going back and listening to the recordings of him and I having very spiritual conversations about life and about afterlife. And that has been pretty amazing for me. It almost felt like those recordings that I did, all those, I guess it's been, yeah, a year and a half, 2 years. It was like I recorded them for this moment. And we talked about the afterlife, and he was asking me, questions about, will his tumor be gone? And I said, oh yeah, you are going to be so free, and it's going to be so amazing. And everything you've ever been interested in, you will still be interested in, and you'll just be helping from a non-physical standpoint versus a physical. But it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be freeing, and it's going to be this unconditional love. And he got really excited, which I think it's important to not fear your next transition, whether you're in the physical or non-physical. Like, we're always going through changes in our life. And then he reflected back how amazing my life was going to be after he transitioned, and he said all kinds of beautiful things, about my life. And then he paused and he said, "Oh, and there's going to be laughter. There's going to be so much laughter." And he started laughing. And that was just so precious to have that recording of him, you know, he was tapping into a vision that I know is real. And so the recordings have been very special. And not only that, I have recorded things prior to John even being sick. I found on my phone, I did some recordings of conversations or thoughts or, you know, things that lit me up. And I think it's really helpful to go back. For me, I've been having to, it's like you create these new identities, because who I am is not who I was when John was beside me. I am a new person, and yet I'm still passionate about the same things. I still want the same things in life. Who walks beside me has changed, but I am still that same person. And it's nice to go back and listen to these recordings of who I am, because I think you can, as I was trying to process all these emotions and also keep enjoying life and being with friends and doing some traveling, I'm so thankful for all that. And now I'm back into doing the hard things that need to get done, whether it be taxes or, business and marketing and all the things that he was always right there beside me and encouraging and stuff. But doing those things, it's like remembering who you are, because on a soul level you don't really change, but on a more surface level, how you see yourself, you change that identity. And I think the recording, so being able to remind yourself who you are and record those things that really light you up. LoriAnn, I know you do like ideal vision, and you do these recordings of like what you're excited about in your life, and you've got some projects that you're doing even over in Europe, and to keep those in the forefront, I think is important, so that we can remember what excites us and the messages, because when the messages come in, those are divine messages, and we're lit up, and we want to remember that. And how do we keep those active and anchored in, so that we are moving towards those things that are calling us?
Yes, and there is so much power with that. I listen to mine all the time. A lot of times in the morning. I love to listen in the morning, but even sometimes when I'm driving, and I'll just click on my little recorder that's on my phone, and I'll either listen to one of my recordings that's my voice, and then I have put some specific music behind it, so that it really does go in and it activates the reticular activating system in your brain. Those things are important for us, because it gives our subconscious mind that power to really think the way we want to think, not the way maybe, because we get 65,000 thoughts a day that are 90% of them are the exact same thoughts we were thinking yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. And so sometimes we get worn down. And it's not, it is a human nature, totally a subconscious brain thing, but it's so controllable. Like what you did when you pulled out the recordings and you started listening to him and you started feeling him and you started being with him. And then you really wanted to elevate your vibration inside of you. And so you listened to yourself, because our brain believes ourselves 100%. Whatever we say, whether it's negative or positive, it believes it, because it has no filters of whether it's true or false or bad or happy, or it has no filters. So what if we just choose to do that extra time to fill it full of these amazing thoughts that really do elevate our vibration. Like your whole program that you talk about, it just elevates your vibration. So your frequency is at a higher level. And then those are the people you attract into your life. Those are the feelings that you get to have inside your heart. So sometimes we say they're out of our control. They're not out of our control. We can choose those feelings that we want to feel. We just have to recognize those 65,000, thoughts that are coming in. We just got to like sidewind some of them or, chop them off somewhere so that we really can be at that elevated state. And that does not mean that we don't grieve. We still have to make time for that grieving and just acknowledge ourselves that we're grieving.
Yeah, being able to feel, get real with how you feel is an important piece, and not making yourself wrong and not judging yourself for the
I loved
emotions.
when you said that. That right there, that is key, not making yourself wrong.
Yeah, and sometimes it's nice to have another person that can just witness and remind you. You did that for me today and just reminded me how much in service I still have been, even through my grieving process and my traveling. I still have such a heart to help others, to find their way and navigate. And as I do that, it helps myself as well. But I also have been on the receiving end. You've been a huge support for me and helped me, just have a space to feel and give me perspective and give me vision of, now what? I'm creating a new life. Now what? What is it that I want it to look like? And then it's about having patience, that it's not going to all come at once, but you stay excited, because that's what having faith is. It's having faith in yourself, in God, in your future, and realizing what it is that fills you up and elevates you to this higher frequency. Our mood is everything, and what we say to ourselves affects, and that's even on a biblical standpoint. Be careful what you think. Your thoughts will run your life. And so all of these tools that you can call, I think I've learned a lot through the law of attraction. It's a law that whatever you give your attention to, energy flows to.
Yeah.
And but as we recognize that our thoughts matter, and I like the other scripture that says God doesn't give us a spirit of fear and timidity, but one of power, love, and a sound mind, self-discipline. It's the self-discipline to care about how you feel and manage your thoughts and your mind. That doesn't mean you don't have them, because they do come, but knowing what to truly believe, if it's false or if it's real. And if you're in your power, it's real. That's the truth, because you're remembering who you are and what
Yeah.
you're made of.
Yes. And you had mentioned, you really have to give yourself a break when you're sick. You're just realizing now that when you went through all of those, the surgery, that time that you were in the hospital, and I know that we've talked about this in the past, but it has come up again. And so sometimes there's layers and layers that we have to work through. We feel like, oh yeah, I already did that. I worked through it. I'm done with that. And then it rears its head again and you think, oh man, I already worked through this. But I believe that there are layers. And you just said that you noticed that again. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I went through my surgery, I was feeling so much better. I mean, I was really out for about a month and in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. But once I was recovering from my surgery, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. But what's interesting is the brain fog that comes after you've, gone under and you've had all kinds of tests and things put into your body. I did feel like my ability to focus wasn't as strong, and it has just taken a little bit of time. And whether you've undergone a surgery or whether you've been sick with flu or anything like that. I have some other friends that have, just had a cold, and then, we just expect ourselves and our body to just be back to normal. And I just think that giving ourselves grace and compassion is an important piece, and that sometimes the recovery might take a little bit longer than we anticipated. And that's, I guess that's me having compassion with myself of like, oh, why couldn't I have done this or this? And I'm like, oh, I was still recovering, and we all have this inner critic that has high expectations, and I think as we just learn to soften those stories, and that doesn't mean that we're not, like, I'm a pretty driven and ambitious kind of person,
You are.
and yet I really love to just be present. I love conversations. I love connecting, and sometimes that means my to-do list doesn't get done as fast as I would like, or that sometimes I need more help with things that overwhelm me. But whatever the case, it's really like every day just finding that alignment with yourself and being kind to yourself with whatever you've been faced with, whatever you're going through, whatever challenges you have. Having compassion with yourself is just super important. And, having the right people in your life that can see you and support you and remind you that you're doing great. We need those reminders, because the world is changing very fast, and there's a lot of distractions that come in, and we're trying to figure out how do we really stay in our lane and stay in our power and our focus and what's calling us, and enjoy life. Life is to be enjoyed, even though we go through some challenging and hard things. Life is to be enjoyed. It's a beautiful world. It's a beautiful life. And we've never had more abundance at our fingertips. And it's about perspective and giving yourself permission to see both sides and know that it's always available. The things that you want are always there for you.
That is great. Well, I think that those are all the things. The one thing that we talked about this morning was expanding yourself by the people that you surround yourself with. And so sometimes we have to be around our family members, and they might not be expanding us. They might, but in that part, I think we have to realize that's where the service part comes in. Because you said that it is so powerful in order to get through your grief or go through things, is that you really tap into the love that you feel inside your heart and the service that you give. And as I've watched you go through this, and the service that you have given, at the family level, at your friend level, and, people that are outside of your family, and even to some children. I mean, you really have been able to give this service because you just show up today. And I think that's part of the power of making it through this, is sometimes it's minute by minute. Sometimes it's hour by hour, and it can be day by day, because really, honestly, today is the only day that we've got. We have no guarantee for tomorrow. That doesn't mean we can't have those visions, dreams, and goals for, out there, but it's really showing up with the people that are around us and being able to expand that circle and really bring in and having, I feel like that faith frequency that we talk about all the time is so powerful, because it really does open up the opportunity for other people to come in and to be a part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think family and friends. It is in service to the people that we love, and to be present. And then there's a time and place for that, and there's a time and place for bigger dreams and maybe bigger thinkers, and expanding, like getting yourself out of the same circle so that you have different experiences and different perspectives. And I don't know. As I'm opening up to get back into networking, I've got a more of a global network that I am a part of, and I'm going to be part of a local community. And I just find that it enlivens me to meet new people and to hear visions and the work that they do. I mean, it just really expands our view of our world that we live in, and the bigger world. And yet there's also a time to be in service with the people that you love that may not be as big a thinker. I'm more of a visionary. I'm more of a I like to expand things into places, and think that all things are possible, and help others to believe in their dreams and themselves, and that all things are possible. So as are you. And yet then we have service to the people that are closest to us. And I think that both are important.
Yeah, yeah. It is that balance. And it's the daily thing of showing up daily. It
Yes.
really is. And
Yes.
and being able to be in any circle but be ourselves. And
Yes.
that truly is when you get to be able to master that and be okay with who you are walking into a room, even if you're nervous and scared. And, you really did step into that room this last week, and it really was a big step. So I just challenge anybody to learn from this experience that you just went through, of stepping into a room that it might be uncomfortable, but then be yourself, like just be so much in power and walking into a room with so much love in your heart. And you will connect with the right people, just like that woman saw you and just really recognized you and heard you and saw you. And even just a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a friend, and she said, "LoriAnn, I hear you. I see you." And just those words, it just like put me into a bucket of tears, because I thought, who has ever said that to me? Like really powerfully, not wanting to fix anything, not wanting to jump in and take over my life or give me advice or anything. She just sat there and she said, "I hear you, LoriAnn. I see you." And I just thought, wow, that was such a powerful gift of love just to do that.
Yes.
And it reminds me, I know that this episode is a little bit longer, like I said, but I remember my brother when he lost his daughter. There was, and she was only 22 when she passed away. And not only did she die, but her baby that she gave birth to. So they both died during the delivery, and the baby was 9 months along, and there were just a lot of circumstances around it. And it was probably one of the hardest things our family went through. And I remember my brother, and and he lived totally 2 states away from me and my sisters. So we just felt so helpless. There was nothing that we really could do except call and check on him. And there was a man down the street that would come to his house every day, knock on the door, and he would just come and sit on the couch in his house. And at first he just said, "I lost my daughter years ago, and I just want to be here for you so you're not alone." And he just sat on his couch, sometimes for hours, because he didn't want my brother to be alone. He knew how sad and how depressed somebody could get like that, and he didn't want him to be in a compromised position where he was alone and he wasn't felt or seen or heard. And this man did this for months for my brother. And I just think, what a gift. What a gift to be able to say to somebody, I see you, I hear you, and I feel you.
I love that. And that is really what's needed, not trying to fix or solve anything, just being seen and heard and present. That is like the most loving thing we can do when we have loved ones that are going through hard things, is to just be present and let them know that they're not alone. So if you know somebody, or if you are going through something yourself, just know that you are not alone, and that there is love and support all around if we are open to receive it. So,
And we see you, and we feel you, and we hear you.
yes.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to Living in the Faith Frequency. Keep shining, keep aligning, and keep trusting your inner guidance as you live your life full out. We are here to guide you as you step confidently into your faith journey. Be sure to subscribe and stay connected. Check out the show notes and let us know what topics would you like to hear next. On behalf of Amy and LoriAnn, we want you to keep talking, keep dreaming, and keep feeling blessed.